So this is a picture of a tree which is a literal good example of once the trees have arrived in January, what stage they would be in. Buying trees is not that simple. You can buy very cheap trees which are small trees. Look at the trunk, look at the thickness. So in other words, if you get the right size tree and you put it in the garden, because of the amount of reserves which are already in the plant, provided you water it regularly, that's how your tree will look in your garden after 6 months. Now this is very interesting because here is an example of a tree where we are a year ahead. With other words, the tree has been in the ground, in the garden, and this is its second year of growth in the garden. Now see what happens and see what we have to look for. We have beautiful shoot growth, but at the same time the first apples are appearing. It is very important not to crop too heavy. With other words, on a tree that size you can carry 10 apples in the second growth season, but no more. And the balance, always to look for the volume of new shoots and the fruiting capability. Right, well here you see a tree in its third growing season. Now what is beautiful about the trees, if you are building up your trees gradually, you can see the spread of the branches all the way around. You see fruit starting to appear all through the center and on the vertical leader. And the other most important thing to say is that by that time enough predators should have been around to keep the greenfly or aphis under control. But if for whatever reason that hasn't happened and you see the ends curled up like that, just take your cutter, cut out the top. And by that way, by cutting out the top, you remove the aphis. Don't drop it on the ground, put it in a plastic bag and put it in the non-recycling bin. But that is only as a last resort if the greenfly makes the leaves go all curly. Alright, now this, you can see the tree is grown another year. So this is the fourth growing year. And now it becomes very important that you realize the shape of the tree. From the point of view of entrance of light, always maintain the tree in a pyramid shape. With other words, narrow up there and wider up here and small branches in the middle. If you do that, you get regular fruit growth all over the place of a good size, but also the tree can make food for next year. If it's all closed up in the center, the tree really is starved for food, and also the fruit is of inferior quality. Now this is a good example of a 10-year-old tree. Now you can see underneath the tree we maintain throughout the life of the tree an area where there is no weeds and no grass. That's essential for the tree to provide enough food to look after the entire structure. You see the amount of fruit in the tree here. Well, 1 pound of fruit is the same as 3 foot of growth in energy terms. If you therefore put too much fruit in the tree, you will not get sufficient regrowth, and therefore the tree becomes old and is not able to produce the quality you want. The other thing to point out is always have a big enough stake to keep the leader upright. And again, finally, even at 10 years time, you don't have the tree looking like an obese type of tree. No, it's slim on the top and wide down the bottom like a ballerina. So this is a beautiful example of a tree which has been in the ground for 30 years. Look at the thickness of the trunk. That gives you the evidence that it is indeed a tree of that age. Now, how is it possible to maintain a tree like that? As I've said earlier, always try to maintain a pyramid type of shape with plenty of open area, and the majority of the fruit will form here, something like 85 to 90%, and then you have 10% just about there. With other words, with a combination of winter pruning and summer pruning, even when you got a rootstock like MM106, which this one is, you can keep trees within bounds and produce fruit for many years. I would say this tree will probably have another 10 years, so that's 40 years old, and then the fruit is still okay, but becomes more erratic. The next point is always watch the color of your leaves. As long as the leaves are healthy green, you know the tree makes food. As soon as the leaf color and the size of the leaf start deteriorating, then it means that the tree needs to be extra fed, or if it's gone too far out, time to replace it with another tree. But when you replace a tree, don't plant an apple where an apple has been, or a pear where a pear has been. Like good crop rotation. Plant an apple after a pear, or a plum after a cherry, and if you do that, you will get a lot of pleasure of growing your fruit.